Hey, it's Nina. Today I really want to talk about my experience and my journey as a six-line journeying onto the roof. So journeying into the second phase of a six-line. So my six-line is actually unconscious. I'm a 4-6 profile. So I may not be as aware, but it is something that I have become more and more aware of just in the past few years that I've been studying human design. So before human design, I tried so many things, mostly not self, as far as like business and like different hobbies and things that I'd gotten into, and it was like I was never good enough, and my open heart played a role in that. But I would say that like it was really a struggle for me. Like I feel like I failed at a lot of things, especially business-wise, and it was really frustrating for me because it was just like I felt like I was doing everything by the books, and like my businesses weren't successful, or I wasn't making a lot of money, or and so that was like really frustrating for me. And you know, I look back on this and I'm like, okay, I was totally living a third line life. I mean, my entire life was just a bunch of trial and error. And so when I was probably around 27 or 28, I moved and left all of my friends and my family from Ohio and moved down to Florida with my partner at the time. And so I was starting out fresh, I didn't know anyone, and I was slowly beginning my ascent onto the roof, unbeknownst to me. So it was a really difficult time for me. I didn't have a job, my contract had ended, and so I was like struggling to find work down there, and I was struggling to make friends, and was feeling kind of like isolated. I used to travel a lot, and I had stopped traveling, and I didn't have the money to travel because I didn't have a job, and like it was just like in this position where it was really difficult for me as a manifestor, having to be like supported by somebody else. And then with my fourth line, I didn't have that network that I did when I was in Ohio, and my life was slowly beginning to change. And so I fell into a really deep depression. And so by the end of the year, I was like sitting in the shower just crying and being like, okay, screw it, I'm gonna do some drugs. And not like drugs in the sense of like I'm gonna like numb my pain. I meant like plant medicine, because I had been reading and hearing about it and saying like, oh, this can be life-changing. And literally like 2 weeks later, I was at some sort of sound healing event, and someone mentioned ayahuasca, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go talk to that person. And so I went to go talk to the person, and he was like, oh, there's a San Pedro ceremony in this weekend or next weekend or something, if you want to come. And I was like, yeah. Like I was just at a point in my life where I was like, I will try anything that's not like addictive or like meant to numb my pain, but meant to like go into the pain to like heal and like help me find my joy and my happiness again. And so if you're unfamiliar with plant medicine, San Pedro comes from a cactus, and it's called the grandfather. It's very gentle and soft, and it can be a psychedelic for some. It wasn't for me when I sat in ceremony with it, but it is known to really just crack your heart wide open. So yeah, I went to that ceremony and like completely took away my depression and opened up a whole new world of like moving my body and being more expressive. And it was just like really helpful. And that entire year I kind of sat with ayahuasca a few times. And then was it that year? Maybe there was another year. I don't know. It all kind of blurs together. But that was the time that I was really starting my ascent onto the roof. But I was still kind of in my trial and error phase. I was trying all these different things and sitting with these plant medicines. And after living in Florida for 2 years, I moved to Seattle. And that was really difficult. That was probably when I was like, I was 30 years old. And so the friends that I actually did start to make in Florida, I was leaving, and I went out to Seattle and like had to start all over again. So as a fourth line, that's like really devastating. And then as I'm like making my way onto the roof, I'm noticing this change of like wanting to be more adventurous, wanting to go out and socialize and be around people, but also feeling that something was shifting and changing where it wasn't as prominent, but I was trying to hold on to like that identity and that like way of living. And so when I lived in Seattle, that was really difficult as well because I was trying to meet people and I just felt kind of like an alien, honestly. And I think a lot of it has to do with my quad rightness. It's just, I feel like I'm just different than people. I see the world very differently. I take in information differently and I process things differently. And so it was difficult for me to make friends from that sense. And I didn't understand really didn't understand like that I was a manifestor and what that really meant to have like a repelling aura. And so I just constantly felt rejected by people, and my open heart took that personally, like all the time. And when I was in Seattle, I sat with plant medicine again more, and I went deeper and deeper into that medicine, and it was very transformative for me. Like I stopped drinking, I stopped eating meat. It just was kind of like an organic thing. Nothing against eating meat. I would eat it if my body wanted me to, or told me like it felt like it needed it. But I just became more intuitive and tapped into like my health and different things like that, and became more aware of like the people that I was hanging out with. And I kind of felt like I was withdrawing from my social life a little bit, which was very weird and foreign for me. And I'm looking back on all this and I'm like, wow, I was really starting to go onto the roof. And then in 2020, COVID happened, and I'd been planning to walk the road to Santiago and kind of just do this pilgrimage because I felt like I was needing to go within more and more. And I just think that that's kind of a trait of someone as a sixth line who is making their way onto the roof and transitioning to that second phase of their life, because I think that we're all kind of trying to make sense of this identity shift. Because for me, I was being much more picky about the people I was hanging out with, but I didn't understand why I didn't want to hang out with certain people. And my fourth line just wanted to have friends and have a network, but I was being much more picky, and I also wanted to spend more time alone. It was like, for me, I was like, I didn't want to do something unless like it was something I actually really wanted to do. Whereas before, I would go do things just to have an experience, and my 35, 36 wanted to go on all these adventures, and I just felt like all of that was shifting and changing, and I just wanted to spend time alone. I wanted to be in more stillness. I wanted to, play my guitar and like be alone. And so that was like really foreign for me. And so after I left Seattle during the pandemic and came to Florida for a few years. And that was kind of like a haven for me because there weren't as many restrictions, and I lived right on the beach. Like I could see the ocean from my window, and it worked out so perfectly. Because it was like this place of stillness or like pause where I could reflect on, where I wanted to move forward next. I was working at a corporate job at the time, and so it was just kind of like seeing, all right, what do I want to do next in my life? Like, what's most important? Like, how do I want to feel? And so it was like this gradual shift over the last year or two where it became more and more apparent to me where I was not aligned, and especially learning more about human design, it was like my whole life was basically shifting and changing. And so I ended up ending an engagement. It was a mutual thing. My partner is a projector. We were both 4/6s, and we both felt like we needed to do the next chapter on our own. Like I needed to go be alone and kind of like find myself a little bit, and which is what I'm doing right now while I am in Mexico. And it's been really, really amazing. And so my journey onto the roof as a sixth line, I'm 34 right now. I feel so comfy up here. Like it's so nice to not just go head first into things without an awareness. I'm very picky about where I choose to give my energy and who I give it to and what I do. I'm going on different adventures and I have variety, but I also know when to stay in and to care for myself. And it's nice to not be the person that's, learning through trial and error. I'm like the fly on the wall everywhere I go. And so it's kind of entertaining, quite honestly, because I'm just like, I look at people and people don't really have self-awareness, but they're really successful, or they have a lot of group of friends, or they're really intriguing or interesting, and I'm just observing them and I'm just taking it all in, and I'm like, how are they living their life? Why are they so successful? How are they successful? What are they doing with their career? How are they speaking? How are they holding their body? What are their eating habits? Like, I'm just taking in all of this information and I'm just observing it, and I'm not necessarily doing anything with that information right now. I think as I get older, I'll continue to combine that information, like through my own trial and error in my first phase of my life, and then also what I'm observing now, so that when I do come off the roof, it'll just be like, it's just going to become more and more apparent to me, like, what works and doesn't work. And so I'll really live my life from a state of experience and awareness. And so I would say my journey onto the roof was confusing, the first part, because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't have human design here to tell me, or to like kind of give me a blueprint to know like what the hell was going on. And but when I started studying human design deeper and deeper, it became such a huge relief for me, so that I was able to really let go of that old life. And especially as a fourth line, like, I was giving up all of my friends and my network and shifting and ending relationships, and that was really difficult for me. And then also recently letting go of my corporate job that I'd had for a while, letting go of that kind of corporate life, and kind of setting aside even my yoga business and everything, because I wanted to take a step back and kind of reevaluate and decide what was important for me and what felt authentically aligned for me and how I wanted to move forward, and to do things from a place of joy versus like, how can I make money? So I'm kind of doing it a little backwards now. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like go have fun and explore, which is why I'm here traveling, and see like really what sparks that joy for me. And because I want my work to be play, and it's kind of like just organically turning into that, and I'm getting a better idea of how I want to move forward with my different businesses, and I'm already like making money, and I'm not even really doing anything, and I'm just having fun and enjoying myself. So I'm starting to see how that's like playing out in my life already. And part of it, I believe, is, you know, because I'm a quadrite and I'm leaning more into being in the flow, and not trying to plan and control everything. Like, when my mind comes up and tries to think and say like, oh, we need to do this, or we need to make money or whatever, I'm just like, no. Does it bring me joy? No. Does this feel in flow? No. Okay. And so that's kind of like my guiding light right now while I'm on the roof, because I'm more picky. I want to enjoy a life that is something I'm going to look back when I'm in my 80s. I don't want to look back on my life and regret anything, and I want to live a life that is authentic for myself and not live it for other people. So yeah, so that is a kind of a recap of my process of going onto the roof, and I know it'll continue to change, but I will say I feel like it might be kind of difficult to come off the roof, because it is so cozy up here. It is so fun to just be the observer and to watch everything and take it all in. And but I know it'll be that much more rewarding to come off the roof and to really embody that role model. There's mosquitoes everywhere here, and they love me. My blood must be really tasty to them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video on being a 6 line and the transition to the roof, as someone who has an unconscious 6 line. And I think I have maybe 5 or 6 lines in my entire chart, so I have a pretty decent amount. And so I think that's also something to consider if you look at your chart, how many of what lines that you have in your chart. I have a variety, or a majority of 2s, 4s, and 6s, so that's something to also take into consideration. But leave a comment. I'd love to hear what your experience is as a 6 line going onto the roof, and maybe a little bit older, maybe you're coming off the roof, and you can kind of share your experience so we know what to look forward to. Yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.